Firstly, I just want to apologize for the camera quality. It looks terrible. I'm still waiting on my new camera to get here, so this is how this is going to look for the moment. I've just gotten off playing Scorn, finished the whole game, and I streamed all of it, so there'll be a link to that in the description if you want to check it out. The main thing I wanted to do was give my initial first impressions of the game. This is taken from stream, so if you hear me kind of like referencing stuff that I haven't talked about, that's because I'm answering questions in chat. Of course, if you want to get any first impressions, you can always stick around for streams that are on this channel anyways, and I'll probably answer any questions you may have or talk about any of the stuff there. But just bear in mind that this is completely just unscripted and just my initial first thoughts, and I'll probably do a more in-depth and what's the word I'm looking for? A more in-depth and descriptive review of Scorn over on the website in the coming days, and then probably do a more polished video version of this. So this is the first impressions of Scorn. If you're looking at giving it a go, maybe give this quick video a look before you do to make sure it's just for you. But if not, it's totally free on Game Pass, so go and give it a go if you're interested. This game is strange, man. It is not really horror. It doesn't feel like horror in any way, shape, or form. Like, yes, it looks visually unsettling, but it's not scary, if that makes sense. Um, the only thing I'm kind of weirded out about is a lot of the marketing for this game, especially, and this is not a fault of the developer at all, but a lot of the marketing seemed to focus on it being a first person shooter, and the combat is the weakest part of this game, and when it comes to the actual combat itself, there's very little of it in the entire scope of the game. It's mainly puzzles, which I'm totally fine with. I love a good puzzle game, but it just, yeah, I think that'll turn a lot of people off this game. This is stranger than the FNAF lore. I imagine. I don't know. But there's nothing here. No context as to what's going on. It's just all visual. And on one hand, I can really respect that because this game is probably the best looking game I've played in the entire year. I think it's phenomenal. It runs well. Yeah, I didn't notice any. I know some people are saying it runs at like 20 FPS for them, but I'm like, maybe on PC, but on Xbox, on Series X, this is playing fine. And I have to say the puzzles were interesting. They were fun. The combat is the worst bit because if you die, there's no save. There's no self save section. It's all based on checkpoints, and they're usually at the beginning of chapters, and it's bad. It's on Xbox Game Pass. If you want to buy it, it's €35. Now, I'm not going to say whether that's overpriced because money really depends on your circumstance. So it's not really worth even arguing whether it's worth that amount of money. It really depends on the person. And that'll change from region to region, anyways. The game is. If the game is fine, it's fine. I would have. If I paid €35 for it, I might feel like I wanted maybe a tiny bit more. But given that this is an independent developer and to achieve this, like the visual style that they have, I'm happy with. I think it's a fine game. It's perfectly fine. It's about a 6 or a 7 for me. If you were looking at it as a puzzle game with slight elements of combat with the H.R. Geiger style of aesthetic, I'm happy with that. If you went into this expecting a first person shooter, you are going to be heavily disappointed because the combat is the weakest element of this game and there is very little of it. Or there's very little variety in it as well. There's 3 types of enemies that you fight. 4 if you include that boss in the final act. That's about it. But no, I'm happy I played it. It's not that long either. I mean, I've been streaming here for 3 hours today. Did an hour and a half yesterday. If we take off the times I took a break for an intermission, it's about maybe 4 to 5 hours. It's very much a doable game. You'd want to be playing this just like, I mean, what kept me going was just the breathtaking scenery. That's what I loved about it. The music is a little strange in this game because it's like it's up and down in the sense that it's like there'll be elements where you'll get real sort of not whimsical but very atmospheric music and like key sections where you progress to a certain stage, but then in between those sections it'll be deathly quiet or there'll be very little music, and it felt really jarring then to come back to the music because then I'd be like, oh, the music's back, and that would kind of suck me out a little bit. I would have appreciated if maybe there was a little bit, I don't know, more variety, maybe it was a bit more involved. But maybe if they're going for that sort of low key sort of vibe with this game where they're not trying to be like, because they're definitely not hand holding at all. There is no guidance on what to do in this game, and to a certain element, I respect that. They do throw you in at the deep end in the first level. The prologue is a severe learning curve to get around. I used a guide for like one bit of it, and then kind of figured it out my own after that. But it's, yeah, if I was given a review key of this before launch and had no knowledge of where I could look up stuff, I would feel a little bit worried, because I'd be like, I don't know if I'm going to finish this. Um, but yeah, it's difficult. The puzzles are decent, although they are a bit throwing you in the deep end. Until you get the third weapon, the combat feels extremely frustrating, and given the fact that there's not long load times, but you have to go through every sort of like in-game cutscene again after you die. So like if there's a bit where you have to get ammo or health, or if you have to open a door, you have to do all of that again. And that really put me off. That made me stop at one point to take like a 5-minute break, because I was like, I don't want to do this section again. Give me a second. It's weird. It's and not in the sense of like it's just, it's difficult to go through the combat sections and enjoy it. The puzzles, I'm happy with. I think they're fine. The game leads you in a certain direction near the latter half of the game that feels a lot more a lot more refined and easy than the beginning of the game did. The beginning of the game seems like it throws you in at the deep end and gives you no sort of like, I suppose, gameplay progression throughout the level. Whereas with later puzzles, you felt like, I've solved this bit and there was only one clear way you had to go next, and you'd solve the next bit. Whereas in the beginning, it's kind of all over the place. Now, up to yourself whether that's a big hit or miss thing for you. But for me, I thought that was, I preferred the latter half, because at that stage, I was kind of like, yeah, I just want to kind of go through and see what's going on. So I didn't want to be overly complicated with the puzzles. Saying that, this game got a lot of flack for some people. I know I was reading a few reviews that gave it a 4 or a 5 or a 3 even. It's definitely not down there. If a game is looking this good, it's at least a 5. Because the visuals alone will keep you there, and for all the faults, the gameplay runs smoothly. Some people have said they've encountered glitches. I didn't encounter one single glitch in this entire playthrough. But I think for a game that was announced in 2014, obviously it had a lot of development issues and it was pushed back a good bit. I'm not going to judge it based off like, oh, they've been working on this since 2014, because there could have been a lot of changes going throughout. If I was a Kickstarter on this, you know what, I'd be happy with the product. I think it came out, first of all, which is a big thing for Kickstarter stuff, because sometimes they just don't. And this is a fine game. Again, the main thing I think was the problem with this was whatever way they did the marketing, because I went into this expecting it to be a first person shooter first, anything else second, but it's very much a puzzle driven game first. But yeah, I've rambled enough about this. I might put this as a separate little video just to have as my initial thoughts on the game before I do a proper full out review. But this was definitely an experience, and I did really enjoy it. I don't feel like I wasted my time playing it. There was a few frustrating parts, but for the most part, this is a fun game that if you have on Game Pass and you're looking for something maybe a bit puzzly, spooky, maybe a disgusting, gory aesthetic, maybe you're into, give this a go. And even if you're not sure about it, maybe just give the first bit a go. The prologue will really sort of let you know whether this is a game for you, because if you make it through the prologue, I think you've done the hardest puzzle, to be honest.